Let's see if that, yes, okay, it's working, great, excellent. I This summer they are doing a number of different things, beta testing different functionality for Canvas, updating passwords, a bunch of other stuff. And what the result is that it does get a little bit frustrating sometimes because there seems to be more glitches than perhaps we want to see. And it's just the nature of what's going on. And sorry to say that it is frustrating. Um, One of the things that we're finding out, Amy and I have been working this morning trying to get her some of her submissions so we could actually put it on YouTube. And we had to change the file format a couple times. Well, one thing that was kind of annoying to me too is that even though she sent the right file format, YouTube kept giving me a message saying that it wasn't, and it would list the acceptable file formats, and one of them was the file format that Amy sent. So all I can say is that sometimes it gets really, really frustrating, and it's not entirely because I'm a Luddite. Sometimes things actually, it's just like the problem with being diagnosed with paranoia is that sometimes people really are out to get you. And it just so happens that things actually were out to get us. Okay, let's see. Let me do roll really quick here. And another oddly ironic code word today was going to be frustration. Okay, and I'm going to just start going down the list. Is Nicole here? Xu Chen? Sierra? Emma?
Hi, yes, I'm here, Nicole.
All right. Amy? Oh, Nicole, you're here too. Okay. Is
Yes.
Emma here? All right. Amy, you're here. Megan? Is Maria here? How about Catherine? Hannah Lee?
Here.
All righty. Natalie?
Here.
All right. Michael? Yen Chen?
I'm here.
Okay, excellent. Xiaoshen? Right. Tatiana? Cheyenne? Cassie? Oh, you're right there. Okay. Janae? Right there. Allie?
Yep.
Right there. Okay. Ashley?
Yes, I'm here.
How about Aubrey?
Here.
Okay. All right. There are a couple of things I wanted to mention. I only have like a couple quizzes left to grade. Everything else is done. And I've left comments. There are a couple people that are kind of irritating because their stuff is usually really, really good. And so I don't have any comments other than, great job, yay, way to go. But everybody else, I've actually tried to say something constructive. And what I'm impressed with is that you guys have done an awful lot of work. And I can tell that this is not an easy thing for most of you. And I can also tell you've tried really, really hard. And I really appreciate that. There's a couple times grading the quizzes I've seen. Remember I told you at the beginning of the term that we try to put in a couple ringers in each of the quizzes to make sure we knew whether or not you read the textbook? It looked like a couple people took the quizzes without reading the textbook. Um, and so I'm just inviting them to go back, read the textbook, look at I tried really hard not to be sarcastic in any of my responses. If it does read like that, I am sorry. And then you can either resubmit the entire quiz, or you can just go through, resubmit a comment to respond directly to what I'm saying. There are a couple people that um, missed the lecture and the conversation for a couple of answers. Just go back and you can either retake the quiz, like I said, or add to the comments. If you choose to add to the comments, you need to email me and let me know. Otherwise, Canvas will not tell me that you've well, most of the time they won't tell me if you've responded to the comments. How how many of you guys have been having issues with getting onto the meetings, or did have issues and now they seem to be resolved? I was going to ask how many of you haven't been able to make the meetings, but if you're all the ones that are here, that's not really going to be a helpful answer.
I definitely had trouble like the first 2 times, but since then I've been able to attend the ones I could.
Did you do anything different, or did the system just seem to reset itself?
I had to contact UVU support, and then they sent me an email kind of outlining what I had to do. Because I don't normally attend UVU. I'm a BYU Hawaii student, and so because of that, I already had an Outlook account through BYU Hawaii that was causing the problem.
Okay. And even sometimes if you try to get onto the account with your new ID, some of the bookmarks and stuff that are in there can screw things up for you too. Okay, yeah. If you guys do have problems, I am not the tech person. Everything that from my end is set up correctly. So, and I know that because I have spent like 6 hours with the tech guys making sure everything's set up. So if there's an issue, sad to say, I cannot help you. So do what Allie did and contact the UVU tech support people, and they will take care of you. They are really, really good. I have not. I've dealt with more rude senior missionaries on Temple Square than I have rude tech guys at UVU, which is saying something. But that was one of my observations about the quizzes. Another thing that I wanted to reiterate too is that if you get any of your grades and they're not where you want them to be, feel free to work on your stuff and resubmit it. And if that means that you need to add to your hours on your work log and resubmit that too, that's great. That's fine. If you do work over 11 hours or so, 11 and a half hours on your each project, you get extra credit too for the additional time you put in. I think there's 3 of you that I'm not going to say obsessive compulsive, but I can't think of anything better to use to describe you guys. There's about 3 or 4 of you like that have been doing just way over and beyond what anybody expects, and you are getting extra credit on the time that you're spent. I've also noticed that there's a couple issues with some of the written assignments where people don't quite understand. There was one quiz where somebody put in an answer on regarding tectonic plates, and I think it was something that they copy and pasted for another class quiz. I hope so. But I would recommend if just double checking your spell check, double checking that you're logged into the right class for the quiz. And sometimes there are a couple of there was one assignment. One person wrote actually a biography about somebody rather than doing the bibliography. And just reread the assignment and make sure you follow it. Most of the time, if you're not getting all the points you want, it's because either you missed elements of the assignment and I point that out, or you've turned in the wrong assignment. Some people have done that too, and it just took them a couple minutes to switch the right assignments around and turn them in correctly, and then they got the points. Another thing that I'm noticing too is a couple people are being really stingy with their words when they make their comments on the discussion board. I recommend when you do your comment, when you make your comments, write it as if you're talking with a friend. And I would say write at least 3 sentences. Make something that's helpful, that's potentially helpful, and view it from that kind of point of view. If you didn't get all your points from the bibliography, usually that's just because I felt that the annotations were a little bit short. This class, we're trying to make the artist a little bit more personal to you. And so I recommend writing the annotations as if you're writing to yourself 30 years in the future, or you're writing to somebody that is interested but doesn't know anything about the artist. And try to write it from the perspective of those points of view that this artist is different from you and why you resonate to the artist. What is really interesting is that, to me, is that whether or not you say anything explicitly about that, if that is in the back of your mind, the people that read your annotations can always tell. And it's a subtle thing, but it's an obvious thing. One thing that I learned about, I don't know if I mentioned to you guys, but I'm a certified alchemist. And I use that a lot in the artwork that I do. So if I used specific colors, for example, I will usually have a reason for the specific colors. And I'll be able to articulate that. Most of the time, nobody ever asks me, and that's fine. But having the reasons, having a process that you go through, having a specific motivation behind doing something, whether or not you ever articulate that to anybody, the people that look at your work can always tell. Whether you're writing, whether you're producing something visual, whether you're producing something auditory, it doesn't really matter. When you have those motivations and that desire backing up what you do, it really comes out. And I think you guys can see this a little bit too. Have any of you had the experience where you're looking at some of the artists, finding more about them? You've already seen their artwork and you kind of like it, but when you read more about what the artist does, suddenly, holy cow, I had no idea. And it makes you appreciate the work even more. I think Amy, when she was doing Ruth Asawa, she talks about that a little bit. Could you share that? Just when did you first come across her postage stamps? And I know I'm putting you on the spot. When did you first come across her postage stamps? And when did you realize that you really responded to the depth of her work?
Yeah, I remember I was doing a dinner party and I really wanted to, I was sending out invitations and it was kind of a modern party. And I went to the post office, the website, and she was on the homepage and I thought her stuff was amazing. I didn't know that it was wire. I didn't know what it was made of. You couldn't really tell by the small little postage stamp, but I just loved her work. And it wasn't until this class that I, did the little minor research that we could do. And I saw her work and I had to study about her. And I'm so glad I did. She's been amazing.
Well, I think that's a really valuable observation. Has the physical work itself changed at all?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I know her more personally now. I mean, I saw those stamps. I think they came out, well, it was August 2020, I remember. And after learning about her family life and what she went through, it just makes her work even 10 times more powerful to me. I actually ended up buying like 3 of her books on Amazon. She's incredible.
That's really cool. And I think it's interesting that she's passed away. She passed away before the stamps were issued, I believe. And so her physical body of work has not changed at all. But what has changed dramatically is the perspective you have about it and how you approach the work. And even though the physical thing hasn't changed, in one very real sense, the work has totally transformed for you. And I think that's really interesting. Have anybody else here noticed this kind of transformation as you're working on the research project for the selected artist? Either for the selected artist that you're supposed to be doing at the for the term projects, or for any of the 5 or 8 artists that are in the artist research for each module. Have any of you really expanded your appreciation for them, going through that process of just learning about what they do?
I would say yeah. I feel like so a couple of years ago I went to Australia, and every year, well, before COVID, they had like a Sculptures by the Sea event where basically they curate like probably 50 or 60 different sculptures, some big, some small. And I just remember walking through it, and that's kind of where my love with 3D art came from. And it's been fun to study. Like, there's been some of the artists that had sculptures in the event that I've studied, and it's just neat to be able to see the background. Whereas, like, before, I was looking at it just like a tourist, you know, kind of looking at everything with no knowledge of art or 3D art or the ins and outs of why certain sculpture artists do different things. But it's just been interesting to see how creative they really are, and like all the different elements that they put into things, and how their like background and their different personalities definitely contribute to the art and styles that they choose.
I really appreciate it. I think that's a really valuable observation. So what I'm talking about is these 2 different halves, or 2 different perspectives on that. One is the exterior perspective, when we're looking at somebody else's work and learning more about them and what they do, and how that can really expand our appreciation of the work that they produce, which leads us to our second code word of the day, which is work. I know it's a shock. It is so original. It's mind-blowing. But then, and that's one half, being able to appreciate more. And then the other half is, as you put more thought and meaning into the work that you yourself generate, whether or not that is ever articulated to somebody, whether or not they ever find that out, I think that really somehow transcends language and becomes visible in your work. When you care about what you do, it shows up somehow. It's kind of a numinous quality that is very difficult for anybody outsider to articulate, but it becomes obvious to somebody. Somehow they can usually tell, and I just think that that's really fascinating. As you guys are exploring those tools of artistic critique, how many of you have had experiences where you totally changed your mind about an artist? Ali and Amy just both talked about growing appreciation for somebody as they found out about them. I'd like to hear from a couple of people as they apply the tools of artistic critique. Were there artists or work that you could not stand before, that now you, whether or not you like it, you actually respect it? Or even better yet, is there a transformation that any of you have gone through by applying the tools of artistic critique, where you grow from irritation that's of somebody's work to now you really like it? Have any of you had that kind of a transformation? Now, I'll give an example for myself. I think I spoke about this a little bit at the beginning of the term, but I used to really feel nauseated when I looked, and honestly, I would be nauseated when I looked at things that Picasso did. I just thought, they were disjointed. It made me feel like there was a lack of equilibrium, a lack of balance. It, I think it messed up somehow with my inner ear, because it just almost gave me that same kind of nausea you get when you get motion sickness. And as I started learning about him, but also as I started really looking at the time period that the art was produced in, that really spawned what he did, and then started paying attention to just things like how he applied color, how he made the lines he did, how he chose subject matter, the subject matter related, how the elements of the canvas related to each other, his very formal approach to balance, and his very formal approach to color theory. I gained a really begrudging respect to what he was doing. And then after that, I started looking at the objects for what they were. And thankfully, my vocabulary of understanding increased to the point where I was able to start enjoying them. And now there are some of his works that I look at, and I feel a really strong spiritual connection with. So it's a complete transformation where there are things that he did that now I feel transfixed by, when 20 years ago I'd be nauseated by. I had a similar transformation with graffiti artists. There are several graffiti artists that when I'd see with their work, I would just get consumed with anger. And now I kind of see what they were doing, and I appreciate the construction and the elements of craftsmanship that go into it. And I've become friends with a couple international graffiti artists that are truly and profoundly remarkable in what they do, transforming kind of a hopeless urban landscape into something that is beautiful. Have any of you had that kind of experience as you have sought to apply those tools of artistic critique, both to people in the class and as you find it applying to just the artwork that you see? Have any of you had that kind of experience?
Well, the artist that I did my research on, Louise
Neville,
Berganas, I think that's their name.
what was her last name?
It's like Berganas. I can't pronounce it. I guess it's French.
Okay.
Like a lot of her like sculptures, when I first was like researching, it was like there's so much of those like big giant spiders, and they're really like cool.
I'm sorry, I lost your
but
voice.
kind of like the more you kind of get into her other work. Oh, okay. Her other works, there's so much more depth to her. And so at the beginning, I thought, oh gosh, she's just all about scary spiders. But as you kind of get more into it, it was kind of like you've seen like more of her personality and the hardships that she had to go through. That's kind of more interesting to me, I guess.
Is this the person that did the texture studies with furniture cast-offs? Or is it a different?
No, it's like giant spider sculptures.
Okay, all right. If I remember right, this is the woman who, when you realize what she's working with and what she's doing, suddenly you realize that these are incredibly powerful symbols for her own journey through self-acceptance. Isn't this the same?
Exactly.
And then when you realize that they're symbols and not just things, it opens up an entirely new door, doesn't it? Yeah, I think that kind of transformation is really remarkable. And I hope that again, this is another thing that's also has two faces to it. One, as you use the tools of artistic critique to look at things more closely, whether or not you end up liking them, generally you do end up generating a greater respect for them. On the other hand, on the other side of that, I think it also helps you to generate or grow the vocabulary that you need yourself as a professional artist to explain what you're doing to somebody else in a way that they can understand it. It is, I'll give you an example of this as well before I ask for volunteers. I did a set of windows for I'm designing a set of windows. I finished one of them, and I did the same kind of thing with a church at Park City, where I was asked to design some spiritual or religious windows with a lot of symbolism in them. And so I came up with something that I thought was appropriate. And when I went and talked to the guys at the church, I believe it was Tuesday, I really had no idea what I was going to be doing. I knew it was a Christian congregation, and I knew that they didn't have an awful lot of budget. And so when they showed me the area, showed me what the building looked like, and what kinds of things that they liked, I realized a couple of things that would be really appropriate. And so I kind of sketched them out, and I don't know, they give me this look. As hard as you all know this look, the look that your family gives you when you tell them that you're working on something in the art world, like when you go for a visit over Thanksgiving, there's always this look that is usually accompanied with the question, well, what are you going to do for money, kind of thing, and just total bafflement. And I was able to articulate why these shapes were important, what the symbols were, how they related to Jesus in the New Testament and the early Christians, how it related to the Christian landscape today, and just the social landscape today, and why I felt it was appropriate with the aesthetic that they were going on in the church. And the pastor looked at me had a look on her face that I thought I just was not winning her over. And I stopped for a minute and I said, I'm sorry, is this not appropriate? And she started smiling and nodding her head, and she said, no, this is great. I'm just trying to remember it all so I could tell our committee why I want to do this. And so I ended up writing down all that I had shared with her. And so having these tools, not only to describe other works, but being able to use them to describe what you are doing yourself to prospective clients are incredibly valuable as professional artists, because then you can actually articulate and head off at the pass, so to speak, the questions that they're going to have when they have no idea what you're talking about. And what is really nice is being able to share that vocabulary with somebody to the point where they can turn around and share it with somebody else. And then it makes you look even better. So remember that. Now, has anybody joined us since I called roll?
I have.
What's that? What's your name?
Michael.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Have any of you had that kind of an opportunity over the last several weeks since we started exploring the tools of artistic critique, where you could actually articulate what you were doing to somebody else so that they could get it? Have any of you been able to have that kind of experience? Okay, and Allie, I just barely got your note. So Excellent. Very good. I'll go through that after we're done. This isn't really an assignment for credit or anything like that, but I would like you guys to go over that page and review it before you do any more comments on the discussion board. And I would like you to look for opportunities over the next few days, over the weekend, to apply some of those steps to either explaining your own work or trying to describe something to somebody else. Like for those of you that are living with roommates or have family members that you're staying with, it is excellent to use this as an opportunity to kind of share with them some observations. I know that some of you have kids, and I also know that some of you have roommates, and this kind of a thing is really eye-opening. And at least for the 7 minutes that they'll remember it, it'll completely transform you in their eyes as from being the weird art person to being somebody that actually knows what they're doing. What I've really appreciated is I've shared these tools with my kids as they've grown up. And what's been really neat to see, none of them are visual artists in the same kind of vein as me. One does crochet, visual artwork. Another one is a quilter. So they are visual artists. They're very fascinated with this kind of stuff. Another one is an actor, and she has also been exploring things like makeup and costume, how that can affect things visually. And it's really interesting to hear them use. I don't even know if they know they're doing it, but to hear them using the tools of artistic critique as they talk about their work. Like my 16-year-old will talk about her crocheting, and she'll describe how the different kinds of knots are important because that sets up the visual rhythm as your eye explores the different fields of color to kind of make the designs pop out. And she has no idea that that's the language that she's using right off of that artist critique worksheet. Even the one that is working as a human resources will describe the elements of somebody's resume from that tools of artistic critique kind of vocabulary. Well, it looks like your past work history is rather balanced, and I see that the rhythm has been broken up by these specific events. Could you tell me about them? So I think it's, on one hand, I'm kind of happy, and on the other hand, it kind of reminds me of, I think it was Tolstoy that said that the artist is infected with the disease of beauty, and it's their job to infect those around them with the same virus. I think that's, I like that imagery. It has that kind of dark Edgar Allan Poe kind of flavor to it that I appreciate. So until Monday, look for opportunities where you can actually inject that into a conversation. If you haven't already, look for opportunities to use those in your comments better in the discussions. And if you are doing your video, if you're going to be working on your artistic critique videos over the weekend, I would like you to really be conscious. Have that sheet in front of you, print it out or something so you can refer to it as you speak into the video, and really be conscious of that kind of language and those vocabulary words. One of the mandates for this course is to help you to expand your vocabulary of your spoken vocabulary of artistic expression, and that will go a long way. Being conscious of those tools will go a long way in helping you expand that vocabulary going forward. I think I've talked about everything that I noticed on those assignments. I just wanted to iterate again that it's very important for you to know three things. One is that the due dates are there to kind of help you keep pace. Two, you can go back and when you look at the comments I've made, I am not trying to jab anybody. It doesn't do me any good to make anybody feel miserable. In fact, it does me a lot of good to help you get the best grade as possible. So if there is, none of those comments are intended to be hurtful or anything. They're all designed to be helpful. So if there is something in there that you can use, please use it. And the third thing is, at any point up until the end of the term, you can go back and resubmit any of your assignments. All right. And that leads me to something else that I wanted to mention today. There are several, most of you are still working on things. You know, there isn't a single person who is all up to date with everything. So I'm going to be going through everything that is already has a due date that's passed. I'm going to be going through, and if you do not have something submitted, I'm going to put a 0 there. That is just to help you to remember that those things are due and need to be done. Sometimes there's assignments that we completely forget about. But the other thing is, I want you to be able to see that so that as you turn things in, as I grade them over the weekend, you can see your grade get better and better and improve right in front of your eyes. And I'm going to be staying on top of things and grading things just as soon as I see them for the rest of the term. And as soon as you resubmit stuff, within 12 hours, I will try to get that regraded so that you can see where your grade is. All right? And I want to do that so that you guys can see right where you stand. If you feel that you have fallen behind, I try really hard not to worry about it too much. I push really hard to get through all of our quizzes so that can be something that you have behind you so that you can concentrate on finessing your final projects. And we have a couple good examples of the PowerPoint presentation and the tools of artistic critique presentations that are up on our channel. And we now have also a couple samples that are right from this class that are up. Please feel free to look at those. And I think that the ones that are up, for the most part, are pretty good examples. Try to use those to guide you as you put together your own example. And if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. A quick observation about time. Please try to keep your critique videos to about 2.5, 3.5 minutes, right around there. I mentioned that. Did I tell you guys about the person that went to New York and did an artistic critique video that was 30 minutes long? Did I tell you guys about this at all? Okay, this is the second semester I was teaching. At that point, you could apply the tools of artistic critique. You could do the second one on any work of art you wanted. This person went to New York. They came back and critiqued an exhibit that they saw in New York. It wasn't a video. They did it live and in person. It took them 32 minutes to go through everything that they wanted to do. The class was long enough. I didn't really, she was so excited, I didn't have the heart to tell her that it was a waste of time, but it was a perfect opportunity to tell everybody else not to do it. So again, the artistic critique, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5 minutes is more than ample time to get through everything. Go over 4.5 minutes, it will start getting really super long. And again, you need to do 2 videos, one about your own work and one about somebody else's work. And that's why I would say concentrate on the 2.5 to 3.5 bullseye, 2.5 to 3.5 minute bullseye. When you do your PowerPoint, do you guys remember the time limit on that? Anybody want to tell me what the time limit is?
6 to 8-ish.
Yep, that's right. 6 to 8 minutes. Perfect. If you go over 10, what will happen? Anybody guess if you go over 10 minutes, what's going to happen?
We start losing points.
Yes. I will start docking points. And if it's really super long, I'll even ask you to edit it down and resubmit it. Because we have a couple long ones on the channel, and I don't want to do that anymore. I would like to keep them between 6 to 8 minutes. What will happen if it goes under 5 minutes? You're also going to lose points, and I will ask you to resubmit it and try to make it a little bit longer. What I've seen with the annotations that you guys have done, most of you have done really well. There are a couple of people I asked to resubmit them so that they're a little bit longer. When you cite an online-only source, it's always best practices at the end of the citation to put in parentheses accessed on and put the date, because that way if a link dies, we know that there's a possibility that we can refine the link. If the link is just gone, it makes it a lot harder to find the link again. But if you are docked points, or were docked a couple points because I thought that the annotation was a little bit too short, what I would like you to do is put yourself back in the mind space of when you first picked this artist. Revisit your notes, your personal notes about what are those 10 self-identifying traits, and then also what is it about the artist's work that really resonates with you? Why did you pick them? What makes them different from you? Ask those questions inside of your mind, and then I would like you to go back and readdress the annotation with perhaps some concrete example of what attracted you and why you wanted to use that citation, and maybe even talk about what in that citation is particularly resonant with you. And that should easily give you another sentence or two. And if I've asked you to be a little bit more verbose in your comments on the discussion comments, please try to make sure that you're commenting at least 3 sentences worth of stuff. And it's not that hard to do, because if you have that sheet of tools of artistic critique in front of you, just pick one question to address from each of the 4 steps, and you've got your 4-sentence comment. And it's actually a comment that is going to be really worthwhile. When politicians are shaking hands in a setting, the ones that don't have a lot of experience will just smile and go on. The ones that do have a lot of experience will find something specific to say to the person as they shake their hand and move on. And what is fascinating about that is the ones that just smile and go on, it's no big deal to the person whose hand was shook. But the person that says something about, it's so good to see you here today. I really made my day. I love the fact that you have so much energy. When they make a personal comment like that, that really sticks in the person's mind. And not only will they vote for that politician, but they'll also become an advocate, more than likely, for that politician as well. Not because the politician said anything concrete, but because there was a personal interaction. So when you make a little bit longer comment about somebody's work, and you say very specifically something like, I love the choice of color that you used. It really emphasized the texture that you worked so hard to achieve. The balance is something that I find refreshing about this piece. It's original, and even though it's a material that we see every day, the way that you've used the material, particularly in these areas, it has made an impact on me. Something like that, you can be completely honest, using those tools of artistic critique, and it becomes beneficial to the person. And you could even say something along the lines of, I would never have thought of using it this way, but the way you've used the material has really given me a creative insight that I can use in my own work going forward. Then that you said something concrete that will help that person in the future too. Which leads us to our third code word of the day, concrete. As I write that down. There have been several times, I just wanted to say this, there have been several times during the course of the term where I have forgotten to put all three code words in, and every single one of you that have said, I did attend this day, you only said one code word, and this is what the rest of the meeting was about. I really appreciate that. On one hand, it's a reminder for me to keep my word and put the code words in, but it also really shows that you were paying attention, and I definitely appreciate that. Thank you very much. So what's going to happen tonight when you open up your Canvas and see that your grade is at 73% because there are a couple assignments that you haven't turned in yet that I put a 0 on? Are you going to freak out and write me a nasty letter, or what are you going to do?
Turn them in.
Yeah, just use that as a reminder that at some point they need to be turned in before the end of the term. Now, I did want to say tonight I will also send out the date of our final. It is absolutely imperative. The college has told me that if people don't make the final, they are supposed to lose an entire grade off of the grade. So it is imperative that you make the final. Since this is an online class, that makes it a little bit difficult. What I'm thinking that I will have to do is on that day of the final, I will have an 8 o'clock session, and then I will probably have an evening session at like 6:30. And if everybody can make the 8 o'clock in the morning session, that's great. But one of the reasons why you have to take an online class is because you don't have a traditional, fully in control schedule of your own. So I want to do those two different dates and get an idea who's going to be able to attend each one. But it is absolutely vital that you attend live one of those two times for the final. If you don't, the department has told me that I have to take off a full letter grade, which sucks, and I don't want to do that. I will also send out a reminder for the SRI before the end of the term. If you do the SRI, which is, I don't know exactly what it stands for. Something about student response, and then some word that starts with the letter I. But if you do that, turn it in, and then send me a screenshot of your receipt for turning it in, you will get 2% added onto your final letter grade. So if you are at like an 89 and you have a solid B plus, you get that 2% boost. You can put you to 91 and you get an A minus. All right. So, and I will send a reminder for that out too. And it should be the link, the sign up thing should be in your Canvas thing. I don't know where it is. If you guys can't find it, let me know, and I will call tech and have them help me set it up to make sure that we have it on there. All right. And that should just be done before the end of the term as well. Now, as a reminder, everything, do your absolute best to get absolutely everything done midnight the day of the final. All right. If you need more time, I think I may have a little bit of leeway. I'm not entirely sure, but I may have. So just let me know. If things are difficult, just keep me in the loop and keep me informed. All right. Okay. Now, does anybody have any questions? I just want to go about another 5 minutes or so. If you don't have any questions, that'll be about it, unless I randomly remember something else.
The SRI is the student ranking of instructor.
Oh, thank you. Janae, you get a gold star pinned right to the middle of your forehead. Now, can you find that? Can you find that on your Canvas page easily? Does anybody have Canvas up so that they can check?
I believe they get sent to our student emails like the last week of the term.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, because it has not explained to me really super well. So I thought it was something that it shows up in the grading spreadsheet that Canvas has for instructors. And so I just assumed it showed up as an assignment on your end. But you said it's an email in the last week. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it usually comes into the student emails automatically, and then we usually have to send a receipt into Canvas to show you that we did it to get credit.
Okay, because that last part sounds definitely right. So it's the last week. All right, thank you very much, Hannah. Hannah Lee, that really helps a lot. All right. Does anybody have any questions? As soon as we get off here, I'm going to finish grading the last two quizzes that I have to go over, and then everything will be up to date, and I will start putting zeros in. Again, do not panic. Don't have an aneurysm. Don't have a heart attack. Don't get a stroke. Don't pass out. Don't have an anxiety attack. All that is to just show you where things are right now. And as soon as you turn more stuff in, I will put the grade in, and you'll see your grade go up. Now, I want to tell you something really that's kind of a cool story. Last fall, I had a student whose his parents are a little bit older, and they were both hit pretty hard by COVID. And so for about a month, the month of October, I believe it was, he was really struggling. When it came in the last 2 weeks of class, I did this, and he showed up as a D minus. And he thought he was just going to take an incomplete and do it again. And I said, the problem is you haven't turned in anything. Look, there's all these zeros. Within 72 hours, he had turned in all the assignments that he had finished but been too busy to put on Canvas, and his grade shot up to an A minus. And it wasn't because he didn't have any sleep. It was because he actually just turned in the things that he had finished and had forgotten about. So, and you'll see that a lot of stuff is stuff that you're 80 or 90% done. You just have to do that last little bit. Use this weekend, if you can, to get caught up on that. One of you was doing horrible as it goes to attendance, but that was because she kept records, kept notes on everything, and just today turned it all in. So her attendance is now perfect. So that's the kind of thing I want you guys to be looking at. I don't want you to be thinking of this as oh no, it's the end of the world. Cats and dogs sleeping together, mass hysteria. I just want you to realize that that's a way of, thank you, Janae, for getting that reference. But I just want you to look at it as a reminder for getting the things turned in that haven't been turned in. All right? Is everybody cool with that? Thumbs up. Thank you, Allie. Thumbs up for the people on video. And can I get a quick oh yes from the people that are on audio?
Oh, yes.
Great. You say, oh yes, hallelujah, amen, anything like that would be just fine. 2 of you. There's 6 more that I need a response from. What's that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
All right. Super.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. If I hear from campus medical services that any of you have had a heart attack because I did that, I will know it's your own fault. All right. If there are there any more questions from anybody? All right. Excellent. What I'm going to do now then is wish you guys to have an absolutely wonderful weekend. I hope it's really super productive. If you guys have any other questions, email me. And if you have added comments or if you have added anything or redone any of the assignments and I haven't graded it, excuse me, email me right away and I will get right on it. Okay? I think a couple of you have submitted things at like 1:30 in the morning. I just happened to be awake and I took care of it right then. My sleeping schedule is weird. So whatever I can do to help you guys, let me know. And I will do everything I can to make sure you get the best grade possible. All righty? All right. You guys have an awesome weekend.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.